It's 7 a.m. You're practically a zombie, staring blankly into the bathroom mirror. Your morning breath smells like a literal dumpster fire. You grab that $2 piece of plastic, squeeze on a dollop of minty paste, and start scrubbing. It's just the most boring, mindless 2 minutes of your entire day, right? Wrong. What if I told you that innocent little stick sitting next to your sink has a darker, bloodier, and more insane backstory than your favorite true crime podcast? Before the era of minty freshness, your ancestors were tearing their gums to shreds with salt-soaked rags, crushed shells, and, get this, the freezing bacteria-ridden neck hair of Siberian wild boars. Even crazier, the exact design you are shoving into your mouth right now was literally engineered in the shadows of a filthy, disease-infested 18th century British dungeon by a rioting prisoner who hacked it together using leftover dinner bones. Buckle up. We're about to rip the lid off the 5,000-year secret hiding right there in your bathroom. Trust me, you will never look at your morning routine the same way again. Let's rewind the clock. Way back. Forget the 18th century dungeon for a second. We'll get to that, and trust me, it's a total mind blower. But to understand the secret resting on your bathroom sink, we have to start at ground zero. Imagine you're standing in the scorching heat of ancient Babylon, roughly 5,000 years ago. There's no running water, no minty mouthwash, no Crest 3D white, just you, your teeth, and a serious plaque problem. What's your game plan? You grab a stick. But not just any random twig you found in the dirt. Our ancestors were actually incredibly savvy. They invented the OG toothbrush, the chewing stick. You would snap off a branch, often from a Salvadora persica tree, still famous today as the miswak, and literally gnaw on one end until the hard wood fibers splintered out into a tiny, stiff broom. The other end, you'd whittle it down into a hardcore toothpick. You would then scrape that frayed, woody pulp directly against your gums to scrub off the grime of ancient meals. Sounds like a guaranteed way to get splinters in your mouth, right? But here's the kicker. This little frayed stick was an absolute necessity, and for the elite, a status symbol. Let's shift over to ancient Egypt. When archaeologists cracked open the sprawling, gold-lined tombs of the great pharaohs, they didn't just find priceless artifacts, golden chariots, and mummified cats. Tucked right in there with the ultimate treasures of the ancient world were perfectly preserved chewing sticks. The Egyptians were so hyper-fixated on oral hygiene that they believed they needed these exact twigs to keep their breath fresh for the gods in the afterlife. Think about that for a second. Even in the face of eternity, with all the wealth in the world, absolutely nobody wanted to rock up to the underworld with a nasty case of halitosis. So for thousands of years, humanity was basically just chewing on bark. It was primitive, it was rough, but it kept the rot at bay. However, as empires grew and human diets started to shift, a frayed piece of wood just wasn't going to cut it anymore. Humanity desperately needed a massive upgrade. We needed something tougher, something sharper, something hairier. Enter the year 1498, the Ming Dynasty. The Hongji Emperor is looking for a serious upgrade to the chewing stick. He wants luxury, he wants efficiency. So his inventors look to the freezing, brutal tundras of Siberia. Why Siberia? Because the wild boars living in those sub-zero temperatures developed incredibly thick, stiff neck hairs to survive the cold. Chinese artisans plucked these tough, wiry pig bristles and painstakingly attached them to handles made of carved bamboo or animal bone. Boom! The world's first actual bristle toothbrush was born. But hold on, don't applaud just yet. Imagine taking raw, coarse pig hair, shoving it into your mouth, and aggressively scrubbing. These bristles were hollow. They held onto moisture like a sponge, which meant that after a few uses, your luxury Ming Dynasty toothbrush became a festering, damp breeding ground for massive amounts of bacteria. It was a bloody, rot-inducing mess. But hey, at least the Chinese had a brush. Over in Europe, things were taking a terrifying nosedive. As the 17th century rolled in, global trade exploded and a new, highly addictive substance hit the European market: sugar. Suddenly, everyone was stuffing their faces with sweet treats, and their teeth were literally rotting out of their skulls. Did they adopt the Chinese pig hair brush to fight off the cavities? Nope. The Europeans actually thought the boar bristles were too harsh and disgusting. Oh, the irony. So, what was their genius alternative? If you lived in London or Paris at this time, you would take a dirty linen rag, dip it into a gritty mixture of salt, crushed chalk, or literal fireplace soot, and brutally rub it against your teeth until your gums bled. It was barbaric. It was agonizing. But it's exactly out of this nightmarish era that our biggest plot twist happens. The year is 1780. Meet William Addis. He's currently locked up in Newgate Prison, one of the most notorious, disease-ridden hellholes in all of England, doing time for inciting a riot. One morning, Addis watches his cellmates scrubbing their rotting teeth with those filthy soot rags, and he thinks, there has to be a better way. Later that day, after finishing his miserable prison ration, he doesn't throw away the leftover animal bone from his meat. He hides it. He gets his hands on a small drill, probably bribing a guard, and bores tiny holes into the bone. Then he begs that same guard to bring him some stiff bristles, likely from a pig or a badger. He ties the hairs into tufts, glues them into the holes, and right there, in the stench of a lightless dungeon, the modern toothbrush is born. When Addis finally got out of prison, he didn't just walk away. He patented his prison hack, mass-produced it, and founded a company that made him absurdly wealthy. Wisdom Toothbrushes, the company he started, still exists today. So, problem solved, right? The world is saved. We all have toothbrushes. Wrong again. Because even mass-produced, we were still using animal hair. We were still shoving bacteria sponges into our mouths. We needed a miracle. And in 1938, the DuPont Corporation delivered one. A brilliant chemist named Wallace Carothers invented a synthetic supermaterial, nylon. Within months, the world saw the release of Dr. West's Miracle Tuft, the very first toothbrush with nylon bristles. No more pig hair, no more rotting bacteria sponges. It was sterile, perfect, and indestructible. But here is the final mind-bending twist. Even with this perfect plastic tool, most Americans still weren't brushing their teeth every day. It wasn't a daily habit yet. What finally forced the entire nation to clean up its act? World War II. When the U.S. military drafted millions of young men, they realized that dental decay was a massive liability. You can't fight a war if your teeth are rotting out. So the military enacted strict, mandatory oral hygiene protocols. Every single GI was forced to brush daily with a nylon toothbrush. When the war ended, millions of soldiers brought that rigorous daily habit back home. They taught it to their kids, their wives, their friends. Almost overnight, the toothbrush transformed from an optional luxury into an absolute non-negotiable American staple.